everybody, Fantasticairy here, and I'm back with another video. I decided to continue painting more lichen and moss on my sketchbook page, filling this page, which at the end I will reveal. It turned out pretty nicely, I think, and I actually am very satisfied with the result. But for now, I'm going to share with you my process in painting this mostly lichen little patch. So I started off creating these weird viney shapes. Lichen has very interesting shapes and characteristics, like I've said before in my last video. If you actually Google lichen, there's so many different cool species of it. It's a very complicated species. So exploring this more was very exciting. This particular patch that I'm painting is a little bit more on the browner side and less colorful than my previous little patches of moss. I wanted to try to stick to the color palette of the references that I was using. I used multiple, and then again, I would trail off from the reference, going with the flow of the style I have going on for this particular page with the different brush strokes I've been using for the lichen and moss. It was really cool painting the orange circular shapes of lichen. I ended up having to use my smaller brushes just to get those tiny details, because I noticed a lot with the lichen, there's so many tiny details that I wanted to capture. So using my tiny brushes ended up helping me in that. I'm using my number 1 round brush and then my 0.5 little tiny round brush for the extremely smaller details. The more and more I paint the lichen and moss, the more familiar I get with my process of how I tackle these pictures or illustrations. It's a very layered process, going from light to dark and also leaving blank white spaces for colors like the orange ones, because I couldn't have gone over any green with the orange. It would have looked too brown, and I wanted to make sure I had that orange color just right. So it was a lot of fun structuring how I painted this particular patch of moss. It was a little bit more complicated than my previous. It was a good challenge as well, trusting the process, making sure that my contrasts aren't too dark before I get my other details in, and not rushing the process. Adding in those dots to keep to the flow for with this page really helps bring all the other illustrations together. I really had fun mixing the browns and the yellows with the green, creating this almost, I'm going to call it an ochre green, olive green color. And now I'm adding in some brown, giving a little bit more contrast to the bottom, starting to sculpt my composition a little bit more, adding a little bit of definition, which I try to do. If I'm being honest, light and shadow hasn't always been my strong suit. I've always gotten away with kind of cheating my light and shadow, so that's definitely something I've been working on, hopefully improving on as well. Another thing that I struggle with, which I'm sure more so of you can relate, is trusting the process. Sometimes halfway through, if I'm not liking something, I don't like it and I don't have the motivation to finish it, I'll just completely redo it. Lately, I've been trying to kick that habit and just finish my illustration, look back at it as a learning experiment. And then I'm going to go back over to the orange lichen and start darkening and making it a little bit more saturated in some spots so that it pops a little bit more. I feel like I could have done a little bit of a better job with the lichen, the shapes and the circles, but the more I paint it, the more I'll get used to it. The reference I was using had a little bit more of a yellowish tinge to the orange circular lichen, which I'm not sure what it's called, except I took artistic privilege and made it more orange for the colors I wanted. Now I start to add in some blue lichen. It's like a cloudy grayish blue. The color is actually really beautiful in the reference. I'm not sure if I captured it very well. I kind of went off on my own bluish colors. I tend to do that. But this shape was very interesting to paint. It was almost like a cloud. And I find that the blue with the orange is very nice because of course they're harmony colors. And it kind of helps when you have the orange next to the green, which those two colors technically don't go together very well usually. So having that blue there with the browns brings it all together. And then of course darkening this blue just a little bit more so it has some more of a contrast to it. I kind of want to tackle the blue lichen a little bit more, maybe possibly in the future. It was actually very tricky to paint. I think it's just the way that I'm layering it. I have to be a little bit more patient and definitely look at the detail and shape a little bit more. Another cool thing about lichen, moss, and a lot of other plants too, they're almost like fractals. They kind of spur and grow off of each other. I guess it's just how they reproduce. But it's super interesting, all the different shapes. And again, I'm repeating myself, but it's very fun to paint. And then here I am taking my 0.5 round brush and dotting in some little tiny hairy looking spots. Some moss has like this furry texture to it, and I wanted to capture that a little bit. And also it adds a little bit more definition and detail to the front of the painting where you would see more detail versus the background or midground, as if you were tackling a scenery painting. Adding in this darker little furry part was a very good idea because it really did make the painting pop a little bit more. You can definitely get carried away with small details, but if you have a solid structure and composition, it's okay because I think the details like really bring it out and you can just have fun at this point. Taking my small tiny little brush and adding in a little bit of a lighter texture to the front of the painting, defining these certain spots in the painting just so that it helps bring it all together. I really hope what I'm saying makes sense. To myself it does, to my own brain. Hopefully it makes sense to you as well. Adding in details can be very satisfying, especially if you're painting smaller little paintings or illustrations. I wasn't aiming to get it exactly to my references. I just wanted to portray what I was painting in a way that it's believable. Every time I paint, the thing I want to achieve the most is, of course, a satisfying painting. Inside of that is to make sure that when someone looks at my painting, they can identify it for what it is, even if it's stylistic and not necessarily super realistic, because I don't really aim for realistic. I aim for more conceptual, a style and a flow. I've just never been interested in painting super realistic paintings. I feel like it would be a very great practice for people, and I know for some it's very relaxing and meditative to paint a reference exactly to what it is. But for me, I find it's more satisfying taking a reference, putting it into your own style, and making sure it's believable to your audience. And here we are. Here's the end result. It turned out pretty nice. I was worried a little bit when I started the painting. I was like, oh, I don't know if this is actually gonna look like what I want it to. And in the end, it could have been better. It can always be better. But I am satisfied with the result, and I'm glad that I tried out this more complicated composition and different types of lichen. The colors are very interesting as well. They are very more brownish in tone, almost like an autumn kind of feel. And I did this thing on the sides where you see the little palettes, just as reference, so that I know next time when I go back to the page, I can review what colors I mixed together and used. This was a great learning experience, and I'm excited to start the next sketchbook page. And finally, I can share with you guys the finished results of the sketchbook page. I had a lot of fun painting different types of mosses and lichen, different colors and shapes, and adding them all together, cheating a little bit and making my own little shapes, almost like if it was an alien world. I think my favorites were the branches, or painting little logs with moss and lichen growing off of it, because that's where you see them the most, in damp environments, areas where there's decomposition, and then having fun and of course adding in little mushrooms because they are also part of this entire ecosystem of lichen and moss and fungi and whatnot. The bottom right mushrooms, they actually turned out very cool. There's like a little spotty texture to it. I think it's from when I took my paintbrush and started to lift the paint off of the tops of the crowns because I wanted them to be a little bit lighter. It ended up adding this really nice, satisfying texture. I'm really happy how this whole page turned out. Sketchbooking is so much fun. You can just turn a whole page into a piece of art, even if the art itself is random. It's just a really satisfying thing to do, especially if you paint small. How this whole page came together, super satisfying. And excited to learn more and paint more, and the more I learn, the better I will be at painting certain types of plants. And then all together we have the skulls and moss from 2 weeks ago, and it just all blends well. The two page spread, all the colors and the shapes ended up being very fantastical. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please comment below. Share with me if you've painted anything like this before. I would really like to interact with you. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more. Videos are every Friday. I also post to social medias every Friday. Links are in the description below. And if you're interested in purchasing any prints or stickers of my artwork, you can do so on my imprint shop. Link in the description below again. And yeah, that's about it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching if you made it to the end. And even if you didn't, thank you very much for checking it out. I will see you guys next week with another video and some new art. Alright, thank you guys. Bye-bye.